Okay, good Erev Pesach to those who are joining us. If anyone is joining us, thank you for being with us here at the Boca Raton Synagogue as we prepare for our annual sale of Chametz. Hopefully Junior will agree to buy. We have some unusual things this year as we engage in this agreement, in this contract. First of all, note please that all of the proper guidelines and distancing requirements are being met. Junior and I are 10 feet away from each other, and we'll be having absolutely no physical contact. We're maintaining that distance from one another. We don't have a live audience. We are here simply doing the minimum requirements in order to sell the chametz, but at the same time, do it in an appropriate way. So Junior, how are you today? First of all, I want to begin by very publicly, or at least as publicly as anyone is watching, Leora, be careful. As anyone is watching, I want to thank Junior for his incredible hard work in protecting and securing and taking care of our precious home, our shul, while it remains empty and the campus is not active. Thank you, Junior, your amazing team, our wonderful staff. Also, a tremendous thank you to Linda Gordon, who has been working mostly from home and taking care of herself, but nevertheless, never drops the ball when it comes to our sale of chametz to our community. And so, Linda, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Junior, I am here representing 960 parties that I know of, and undoubtedly many more that I don't know of, who forgot or neglected, or this year is so unusual, didn't appoint me to be their agent yet. I want to act on their behalf because it's a merit for them for me to do so nonetheless. Several 780 of them come from the Boca Raton Synagogue, and 3 other local synagogues in our community asked me to be their agent and passed on their forms to me. You know who those synagogues are, and these forms will belong to you momentarily. That's a total of 960, and we're going to tack on more because, again, I'm going to represent people who may have forgotten, but nevertheless, I represent them. They've asked me to be their agent. They've asked me to represent them to sell their chametz to you. As we talk about every year, we're going to go through our contract. You have a copy, I have a copy, so we can be distanced from one another. But we'll review the terms of the contract and the terms of the copy, because this sale is not fictional. The sale is not an illusion. The sale is not a legal loophole. This is a bona fide, legitimate sale. By the time we are done, you will be the largest chametz owner in South Florida. Not symbolically, not theoretically, but in practice. You will incur a debt. You will be responsible to pay the value of all of that chametz. And God forbid if something were to happen to that chametz, if the places where they are stored, there was an event where the chametz was compromised or ruined, it would be your loss. This is a full, bona fide, legitimate, and binding sale. It's made on April 8, 2020, corresponding to the 14th of Nisan 5780, before 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, between Rabbi Efrem Goldberg and Boca Raton Synagogue, herein referred to as the agent, and Christopher J. Jr. of Pompano Beach, herein referred to as the buyer. Whereas certain people whose names are set forth upon inventory sheets delivered here to the buyer, herein referred to as the sellers, are desirous of selling all their chametz, which we'll define in a moment, owned by them and in which they have any interest whatsoever. So in other words, the 960 people I represent, Junior, have filled out forms. They are here. It has their address, the location of their chametz, the approximate value of the chametz. For social distancing reasons, I'm happy to hold on to these forms in my office. They are accessible and available to you anytime you want to consult them, so you know where your chametz is, and you can go take possession at any time you want. If you prefer not to touch them or lift them, I will hold them, though we're both wearing gloves, and of course they belong to you. Each of the said sellers is designated, appointed, and empowered by Goldberg as the lawfully designated agent to sell, transfer, and dispose of all such chametz in such manner and upon such terms as the agent in his sole discretion shall deem appropriate. In other words, I'm in charge. Whereas the buyer here and above identified is desirous of purchasing all the chametz of the sellers in accordance with the terms of the agreement. In other words, should you choose to go forward, agree. So then the following. Now, therefore, it is agreed by and between the agent, as the agent of the sellers, and each of them, and the buyer, that the agent thereby sells and the buyer hereby purchases all chametz belonging to each and every one of the persons here referred to as the sellers, whose names are on the inventory sheets of each seller. Okay? So far so good? Any questions? Great. Any questions online coming in? Check the chat and see if anybody has any questions. The term chametz, what are they selling you? What are we selling you, Junior? Is intended to include all 11 products of the 5 types of grain: wheat, rye, spelt, barley, and oats, alcohol fermentations of any of these grains or admixture containing any of the above mentioned products, including but not limited to all items specifically enumerated upon the individual inventory sheets of each seller. In other words, people have listed and identified their chametz, its approximate value, where they could find it, in which pantry, in which cabinet in the kitchen, in their garage, where it might be. Now that will be some open packages. That will be some sealed packages. You will probably be the largest owner of whiskey, rye, scotch, bourbon. Look at that smile she just got right now. It's going to be yours. And you can check the address, go and claim it anytime you want over the next 8 days. It will belong to you fully. It's yours. In order to effect the sale, the buyer agrees to pay the agent the sum of the estimated fair market value of all the chametz is determined by 3 recognized experts, according to the accepted market value prevailing today in Boca Raton, Florida, and which shall be paid by the buyer as follows. In other words, how do we know how much the chametz is worth? People have in their cabinets, in their pantry, in their garage, in their liquor cabinet, the places they enumerated, and we're very careful to say, even in places that they did not specify, they intend to sell you their chametz. We're selling you the chametz in the synagogue, though we know there isn't any, and the way we know that is because you cleaned for Pesach, and we trust you. Otherwise, you owe me $1 per crumb that we will find, and we found none last night. So what is the value of that chametz? The answer is simple. 3 recognized experts will come, survey all 960 homes, review all the chametz, and give us the number. Until then, we propose to you that you give us 50 cents per person as a down payment, as a deposit on what the total sum is. Now, it's important to understand that the sale is absolute and effective immediately. The balance due is considered a debt from you to us, the non-payment of which shall in no way affect the validity of the buyer's title to the chametz sold. Risk of loss and loss of value are borne by you, the buyer. In other words, you're going to give us a deposit of 50 cents per person today. You owe the remainder, the rest, between 50 cents per person today and the real value of the chametz. You owe the rest by April 16, 2020. And should you not pay the rest, the balance, you still own the chametz, and you own it in full. As I said, if everywhere where the chametz is stored, God forbid, there was a disaster and the chametz was ruined, it would be your loss, and you would still own the balance of the money beyond the deposit. Are you comfortable with that? Do you accept that?
Yes.
50 cents per person deposit towards the chametz, though it'll be evaluated by 3 experts, and the balance is due on or before April 16th, but you will own the chametz immediately. Yes?
Yes.
Excellent. In addition, the buyer gives an item of personal property to the agent, chalipin. Because it's unclear in rabbinic sources exactly the mechanism through which this transaction, a Jew and a non-Jew, takes place, we engage and we employ as many transactions as possible in order to cover our bases. In this unusual year, we have to modify. So one of the kinyanim, one of the transactions or acquisitions that we engage and employ is called chalipin. Something of yours that you own, I lift symbolically. So the way that we'll do that, the buyer gives an item of personal property to the agent. So this is your band. This is not disposable. It's an item of value. It is long enough that we can maintain our social distancing. And the junior is giving it to me, and we lift it as a kinyan chalipin together. Normally, we engage in a kinyan called situmta, which means whatever the course of normal business transaction contracts, which in Western world is typically a handshake. However, in this year, and for the foreseeable future, that's likely changed. So the normative behavior this year is not a handshake. Rather, in order to preserve our social distancing, we're simply going to bow and nod towards one another. And by engaging that bow and that nod, my children are here helping me with the technology. Thank you, children, but please stay off screen, maintaining their distances. Instead of a handshake, this year we're going to bow and nod. And by doing so, we have bound ourselves by this agreement, using a common custom of sale in our time. Additional method of acquisition are employed because of the questions of effectiveness of each method, but they don't rely or depend on each other. Each method is acting independently. It's further agreed that the agent on behalf of each of the sellers releases to the buyer the closets, cabinets, storage rooms, garages, and other areas in the premises of each of the sellers, where the aforedescribed chametz may be located, including the location specifically enumerated upon the aforementioned inventory sheets, and including further any other locations within the premises of the sellers where such chametz may be found. In other words, Junior, the people I represent don't only want to sell you their chametz, they want to lease to you the place where chametz is found. Shelf, pantry, cabinet, storage room, garage, maybe the whole house. You will be the biggest real estate holder in South Florida, because not only are you purchasing the actual chametz, you are leasing and renting the place where the chametz can be found. Are you prepared to enter that agreement?
Yes.
Excellent. The agreement is the following. The lease will take place from today, April 8, 2020, before 12 p.m. Eastern Time, to 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time on April 16, 2020. In consideration for the foregoing rental provision, the buyer agrees and hereby does pay to the agent the additional sum of 50 cents for each of the enumerated sellers. In addition, the aforementioned method of exchange are used to affect the rental. So we're going to lift this once again, the chalipa, to affect the fact that you're taking lease of each of those spaces. And we're going to nod once again, situmta, a common custom to show that we are bound by this agreement. Excellent. I feel like we're about to enter a karate match together, which you would definitely win hands down. So now you've purchased the chametz through the different mechanisms. You've rented the space. Why did you rent all the space? Because by dint of the execution of the rental agreement, the buyer also acquires ownership of all the aforedescribed chametz, which is transferred to him in the best legal form, agav. And by virtue of buyer's right in these rented storage areas, all the chametz is acquired by the buyer through chatzer. By being the owner of the leasee of all this space and area, you are acquiring the chametz found in that space by acquiring rights to the space itself. So your 50 cents per person deposit for the chametz, the balance you owe on or before April 16th. You take possession of the chametz immediately. You're also leasing each of these locations, and you take possession of the chametz through leasing each of the locations. It's further agreed that the buyer will have the right to access through the premises that sell each of them in order to gain access to the respective storage areas. In the event the buyer shall require keys to access any of the premises, they'll be made available upon reasonable demand and
By
of course,
acquiring
guidelines
rights to the space
that are
itself.
given to us.
So your 50 cents per person
Turn
deposit.
the sound off, Leo, so it doesn't have the back. Turn the sound off on the top. Okay. It is expressly intended by the parties here too that this agreement shall be binding in accordance with the laws of the state of Florida and with the laws of the Torah. So the only thing left, Junior, is for us to sign this contract together and for you to make the payment. 50 cents per person as a deposit on the chametz and 50 cents as a deposit on the lease, which will, of course, is only until April 16th. I am signing my name, maintaining our distances, and giving you. Any questions that are coming in?
The Facebook, right?
Okay. Did it rejoin?
I don't know, but we're
Not now. Okay, we can hold on to that, but put that with the inventory sheets, which belong to you, but I'll hold on to in case you don't want to touch them for now, but you will have access to them anytime you want. The only thing left is payment. So Junior, I'm representing 960 people, 50 cents per person as a deposit on the chametz, 50 cents per person to lease the space where the chametz can be found. It's $960. I want to be clear as well that I'm representing people who didn't even know to appoint me. Anyone who may own their chametz and have forgotten to sell, through the principle of zachem ha'adar shelo b'fanav, that I can represent them in a way which is a merit towards them, I'm hereby representing to sell their chametz as well. Do you accept to purchase the chametz and lease all that space?
Yes.
Excellent. So the only thing left is $960. Would you happen to have such said dollars?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, you can put it in the envelope and slide it across the table, maintaining our distancing and our safety with our gloves. We'll wash our hands right after. Now we look like the mafia. Excellent. Junior, I'm accepting this money on behalf of all the people that I represent. We've entered into the agreement using all the methods of acquisition and transaction. On behalf of the entire community, I want to thank you not only for agreeing to purchase our chametz, but for all that you're doing and do for our community on a regular basis. Wishing you and your beautiful family only the best of health throughout this crisis and at all times. Wishing everyone a chag, kosher, v'sameach. Should be a happy, a healthy, and a holy Pesach. Facebook also.